and the second being Single Working Women's Day. Statistics actually show that women in general make significantly less than their male counterparts in their respective industries. Therefore, these two occurrences are kind of intended to engender some destigmatization of gender bias within institutional and entrepreneurial spaces, along with the celebration and, of course, recognition of single and Black women's achievements, accomplishments, all of the wonderful barriers they've broken, and the important roles that they continue to play within our communities and societies. The other reason, of course, is for us to engage in this pressing issue of disparity in pay rates for single women and for Black women. When Cody actually told me that they would be going on a vacation and that I would need to bow our DEI event for the month of August, I was a little hesitant because this is my first event having to actually plan and host, but I'm also really excited because I knew right away that I wanted to do something that will be revolving around this topic. As the young adult child of a single Black mother, I resonate with this on an intimate and personal level. So I really do welcome you all here, and I'm so thankful for you guys to join us today. And for this reason, I have invited two fabulous individuals to come and speak on this topic and to provide us with their own experiences adjacent to this, as well as their expertise on the matters. So please, please, please extend a warm welcome to Stephanie Print from Power Girls. And
Hey, thank you for having me, guys. It's always good to fellowship with our EXP family. And as a woman and as a Black woman, there's just so much to be talked about, to be learned in this topic. So I'm just happy to be here. I'm Karen Johnson. I'm here in Metro Atlanta. Done various things in real estate, been licensed for about 33 years. So I'm just loving what I'm learning and my growth here at EXP and looking forward to sharing with you all.
yes, and that sounds great. We're so thankful to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us, Stephanie.
If my mouse would cooperate. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Prunette. I am currently a CCS for Indiana. I have been with staff for about a year, and I've been a realtor since 2017, so 6 years for me. I have been with EXP the entire time, and thank you guys for inviting me to this conversation. I really look forward to being a part of it.
No, and thank you for wanting to partake in this conversation. I'm so excited to hear what both you and Karen have to say. I know it's going to be amazing. You two are powerhouses, and it's just an immense pleasure to have you here. So, I've composed some questions to aid in our discussion for today. So, let's go ahead and hop on into it. So, tell me a little bit about your encounters with this issue. What personal and professional experiences do you have relating to gender pay disparities and the wage gap? Let's start first with Stephanie.
Okay. When you presented the questions, I've taken a lot of time to go over them. And my first experiences with it really wasn't so much gender pay inequality, but just gender inequality altogether. Um, as a college student, I was a math major and a computer science major. So I was typically the only female in a room. The professors, the doctors were men.
Yeah,
All my co-students were men, and just that was one thing, it was really hard to get extra time,
yeah,
to get office hours, and I would repeatedly hear, I mean, from the deans to my co-students to the teachers, well, maybe you would be better suited for nursing. How
wow,
about being a teacher? And yeah, I graduated in 1999. I, that's the turn of the century. That shouldn't have been a
yeah.
question. Like, why they should have been supporting the women who were new to this field and opened their
Yeah,
arms, but they didn't. And then, the second time I really felt like I encountered gender inequality. And again, I haven't encountered a lot of pay discrepancies, but I
yeah,
am a white female, so it's going to be different for me.
yeah,
Um, was I got fired for being insubordinate. And really, I think at that time, what that meant was I stood up for myself and I put boundaries in a very hostile work
yeah,
environment. And I was 20 years old. So these two things have really kind of shaped how I've seen the world in a very early age as a young adult. So
Yeah,
from 20 on, I already knew there was a disparity, there was a difference, but I didn't understand why. Um, and it really, I've been an advocate for equal right, especially equal pay, because if we don't concentrate on those things, it really messes up so many other facets of our life. And I'll go into those as the other questions get here. But it's not only important for women, it's important for men and all of our allies
yeah,
because it affects the whole community. It
yeah,
affects everyone. And that's really my experience. I feel like I get paid and I'm compensated well. I will not stand for a job that does not do that. I
yeah,
have been a jack of all, a master of none. And slightly because of this, if it didn't fit my needs, I would have to move on as a single parent.
yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from. From my research over the last week, it will take 132 years globally for women to make as much as non-Hispanic men do today.
Wow.
132 years. This is the 21st century. Like that's just it's not okay. So that's why I'm here. Thank you guys, and I really look forward to the rest of our conversation.
Yeah, and I think that Stephanie, I mean, everything that you said was just spot on, but there was one thing that you were saying about how we should already be, because in 1999, that was the turn of a century. And at that point in time, there should have been an expectation that we had already begun defying some of this gender bias, especially as we see it appear within pay inequities. But even within recent years, because Cody and I was doing some research for our unconscious bias training, and we found that still today, within I think it was the latest was 2018, that girls were still facing a lot of gender bias within subjects, including mathematics and other STEM related subjects. And that was therefore interfering with their confidence to believe that they could actually succeed in those classes, as well as then their ability to actually attract and get jobs within those particular markets and industries. So thank you so much for sharing on that. And if you'd like to also go ahead and answer that question.
Sure, sure. So I am a Generation Xer. I was born in the late 60s. I was in high school in the early 80s. So, man, imagine, how that was dealt with back then. I remember sitting at the counselor's desk,
Yeah,
and at the time, I was told, like, you would be perfect to be an architect or an engineer. You've done great with math and science. You
yeah.
have the skill set. But every time I would talk to my counselor about that path, she would say, oh, but you should really think about teaching or nursing. And she
Wow.
would never encourage me to take the leap into any path, just pretty much like what Stephanie was saying. And the funny thing is, if you look at the contrast, it's almost what, a 20-year difference. So it's about 15 years difference in when we graduated and when we were matriculating in high school. So I think about how much has not changed. Actually, it's challenging when we decide that we want to do certain things. I love sports. I love football, basketball, baseball. I love sports. And
Yeah.
so I grew to love it. And when I got to college my freshman year, I told one of my professors that I wanted to be a sportscaster. And she
Okay.
literally laughed at me. And if you think about sports back then, there weren't women sportscasters. And if you look around now, we broke those barriers. But it has existed, and I have experienced it in every different level of my life. I call each decade a new level. We should grow tremendously within a decade of our lives. And I've experienced it. I love new construction as it relates to real estate. I love development, but that is very, very gender specific. And when they see a woman, and especially a black woman, enter the room, it's almost like they scoff, like we're just not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
The pay, I have actually competed for contracts for something as simple as repaving a parking lot, and what they wanted to pay us was so much lower than what one of my counterparts was offered.
Mm.
And he was a white male, and I'm a black female, so it exists in all walks of life.
Yeah, that is definitely true, Karen. And there was one thing that you touched on, and that definitely reminded me of just how much this gender pay inequity exists. And it was, I think you were talking a little bit about sports, and I'm thinking about how, for example, within like the women's in the BA, especially within respect to a lot of the black female players, they not only face gender inequity in regards to pay, they face gender inequity as we're seeing, of course, through some experiences now. They're facing that just throughout trying to play and be in that field. Um, and unfortunate as it is, it continues to exist and persist as well. And unfortunate as it is as well, some of their male counterparts in their same field are adding to and aiding and amplifying that inequity
Yes.
instead of partaking and trying to dismantle it. I'm so glad that we're having this conversation, that we
Absolutely.
are able to be able to spread
Absolutely.
to our
Absolutely.
allies. Definitely partake in this because it's a thank you guys so much for that. And with that, then, what would you guys say are then some, in your opinions, some prevalent catalysts influencing pay and inequality?
Hmm. Do you want to go first on that, Stephanie?
Sure, I'll take it. I have it broken down into two sections. The first one, and this is from a single woman's point of view, and maybe not even a single woman. I am speaking from my experience, but familial duties. I have in the last 5 years homeschooled two different children.
Um,
I have taken care of a parent on hospice. I have had to readjust my schedule because of COVID and things of these nature.
yeah,
Um, COVID, for example, according to the International Labor Organization in 2021, 43.2% of women were employed, which was a
wow,
4.2% drop globally because single parents, men or women, have obligations to their children and a lot of times just to their families, um, uh, that I think stops us in some aspects of succeeding professionally because we have to take a moment, step back, and do what we have to do for our families. And not that I
yeah,
wouldn't do it 1,000 times over again, but I really do think familial duties is a huge component of what drives this. If
yeah,
women uh, decide to have children, like they are going to take maternity leave. Again, with aging parents, so we're expected not only in society but in our families to be the ones to do it.
yeah,
Um, and so one is familial duties, and the second one I think is policy. We really have to look at caregiver rights, affordable childcare, education, healthcare, um, our judicial system, our justice system, our penal system. Like all of these are factors into what single women experience. And, I really do believe that according to someone's ethnicity, it may be different. Like I may experience something totally different from Karen or anyone else in this room, but all of these policies need to be addressed and they need
yeah,
to be addressed quickly. So for me, I think it's societal expectations and also policy. I think those two things are really driving the difference between equal pay and gender equality.
yeah, of course, yeah. I think that that also are the two main factors as well. Karen, what are your thoughts on that?
I think for me, and we all talked about this when we got together the other day. I really do believe that it is driven systemically. Literally the system that we all grew up in and that we operate in today. It favors a white male. Literally, the
Yeah,
world, all of the laws, the systems, from banking to everything, just even roles in our households, was designed by white men.
Yeah.
And therefore, if a white man creates rules, it will favor the white male. I think it's pretty simple. Even when we look at religious, if we go outside of black and white and we look at global
Yeah.
religions, it's still driven by the male. Everything that we do, all of the books and laws that govern us, whether it's a Bible or a Quran, all of these things were written by men. And so
Yeah.
I believe that it was not, unintentional, it was intentional that
Yeah.
the man would be the head and the woman would follow suit. Therefore, our roles in society reflect that. But what's
Yeah.
happened, if you fast forward all these years, the world, things have changed. And we live in a society where I can speak. I went and looked up the statistics, and it's funny because in three different publications, the numbers show up slightly different. But anywhere from 69 to 72% of black families are governed or headed by a black female. That
Yeah.
is a huge disparity, and it's conversely the opposite in a white community. It's much higher it's much less of an issue in an Asian community or in a Hispanic community. So we all, depending on how we break down the numbers, we are all affected by it, but some of us are affected even more. So what that means for me as a black woman, I was married for 25 years. My husband passed away from cancer, unfortunately, but I'm still a single parent, and
Yeah.
it's different. And the role is it's very hard as a woman. It's really hard in a
Yeah.
lot of areas for us to speak up for our rights, to speak up for our kids, even in something as simple as an homeowners association. There are
Yeah.
certain people that sit on the board that just look at you like you're the wife, sit down somewhere.
Right.
So I think it all comes from, just a systematic, it was by design. That's just really how I feel.
Yeah. No, no, for sure. And I think you were spot on in saying it's all systematic. Speaking from a personal experience, I know I mentioned earlier that I am the young adult child, which is how my mom refers to me as. I'm the young adult child of a single black mom myself, and that I could definitely see how some of the ways in which inequity, not just even revolving around pay, but just inequities in general, the intersections of how these structures set against so many different groups of people can collide at them in multiple ways that can make it feel really overwhelming, which is not to say that there are not other groups of people who are also having odds stacked against them. But when you're enduring it on so many different levels and it overlaps so many different times and it's perennial, it could be a lot. And I know that, like, speaking, like I said before, from personal experience, my own upbringing with my mom, it always created sometimes a clash because those difficult socioeconomic conditions that stemmed out of those inequities made it difficult at times for us to be able to actually be able to bond and connect because she was really focused on making sure that everything was fine with us. And sometimes that meant that she couldn't meet my emotional needs. So it seems like what we're making the point here is that even within gender inequity, it's never just affecting one particular area. It can permeate in other ways and with other different domains that we wouldn't want it to have to, but unfortunately it does. So thank you guys so much talking about that. I really appreciate that. And in the spirit of thinking things through intersectionally, I want to transition into some overlapping issues in gender pay inequality. So how do you see race and ethnicity affecting the wage gap? Karen, would you like to begin?
Absolutely. Stephanie shared with us a great report that talked about, the numbers, the raw numbers of global, the women in leadership roles. That slide, I think it was 2.7, it stuck out for me.
Yeah,
One thing that I saw was in our industry, in real estate, statistically, I know in the state of Georgia, there are many more women licensees than there are men.
wow,
However, what stuck out for me was this. In real estate, when you talk about leadership roles by the industry,
yeah,
only 29% in the C suite are females.
wow,
29% in leadership roles and ownership roles are females, 71% are males. So we make up the industry, yet most of the leadership positions are men. And as you go through, I was looking at all of the different industries, you guys, literally it goes with energy, manufacturing, supply chain, entertainment, retail and wholesale. I was really shocked by the whole retail piece.
Yeah.
Professional services, media and communications, every single area in industry, there are many more men leading in every single industry by more than 50%. And
Wow.
so as I began to really look at that, y'all, it made me think. It's like, well, something is just imbalanced and it is just not right. At
Yeah.
some point, we've got to be more inclusive. I think that we have to, be more intentional and start at the elementary level and teach young girls and young ladies that that C-suite position can be yours. That
Yeah.
first of all, they have to be able to see themselves as being a CFO or a CEO or a business owner or $1 million investor, multi-million dollar investor. If they don't see it every day, then they'll never know that they can be it. And so, in order
Yeah.
for us to change this trend, I believe that it's up to all of us that are in the room that's even interested in the topic. That
Yeah.
we've got to be committed to starting with the young ladies and the babies that are coming up behind us. Because this is real. When I looked at that you shared with us, Stephanie, it was real compelling for me. Like, wow, we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
It was I dropped the link in the chat, for that PDF, that report from the Global Gender Gap Report. 374 pages, and my jaw was on the floor the entire time, that I went through and read this report. It really is enlightening, and there's a lot of work to be done. You're right, Karen, and I think this is a great way to start it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think so too. Actually, when I mentioned earlier that I was doing research for our one of our trainings in DEI was on unconscious bias. And when I was doing that, I kind of went on this soapbox of trying to look up information about gender inequality as it relates to particularly Native American women, because I wanted to, in some way, shape, or form, leverage it into our training. But we didn't have breath with to be able to do so. So I was like, okay, that's fine. But I'm glad now we're having this conversation so that I can sort of dissect some of these issues. And what I was finding was data on their experiences with pay inequality and the wage gap, beginning first with the fact that they face disproportionate rates of poverty and unemployment. 3 of 5, which is 58% of Native American mothers, are breadwinners for their families. So they are mostly dependent on for financial stability. And because of the fact that they face such high rates of poverty and unemployment, consequently, 1 out of 4 Native American children face poverty. It's very sickening. And then also due to the varying tribal groups that single working women are a part of, there's literally non-exhaustive information on what each group's pay gap is compared to the highest groups of paid men. And I think that just connects in so well with what Karen was saying, because we do see when it comes to the intersections of race and ethnicity in regards to gender, we do see women that fall along these axes face doubly some of the insubordination that Stephanie was talking about earlier. And like I was saying before, it's not as though it's just permeating and affecting one area of their life or one individual. It ends up resulting in, for example, the fact that they were saying that Native American women are essentially $1 million behind the highest paid bracket of men in general, and that it would take basically what Stephanie said, about 100 something years for them to actually be able to catch up. Um, and it's not a matter of, and I think what's so interesting for that is that growing up, I had always heard, especially as a woman trying to pursue ambitious fields, I had always been told that, the people that you see in these higher up positions are actually there because they're deserving of it. Just to then see a lot of women who were deserving of being in these higher positions and they never were, and wondering what was the restrictions, what were the limitations. They were some of the most hungriest, they were some of the most hardworking, the most diligent. So why weren't I seeing them in these roles that they were so deserving of being in? So thank you guys so much for, just being able to discuss that. And with that, then I want to ask you guys, why is it important that the wage gap be addressed? And what are some steps you think we would need to enact to take to closing it?
I think it's incredibly important that we address the wage gap because we're seeing more and more woman led households.
Yeah,
And if we don't, then what does that mean for our families that are led by women? That
yeah,
we will be last to the dance every time because we don't have the income to compete. We don't have the disposable income. We don't have the money to invest. We understand the more money we make, we can control our spending and then take the rest of the money and invest it, right? Isn't that what they teach us?
yeah,
To become an investor, to become an owner. But if you're just barely getting by because you're doing all the work but getting half of the pay, it's really hard to do that. And I was being, a little extreme when I say that. But it's just the point of when you're in that seat, it's how you feel.
yeah,
Um, we talked the other day about even, and Stephanie hit on it at the beginning of this meeting, even if we speak up, we're deemed being insubordinate as
yeah,
opposed to just being brave and able to speak our minds.
mm,
We find this often and a lot, in our spaces. And as a black female, it's even more prevalent because as I was doing a little research last night, you guys, I ran across a bunch of blogs that were talking about what they call the new. We're stigmatized by being called the angry black female.
yeah,
There are a lot of black women in management and in upper management in corporate America now. But if we speak up in a way that might be threatening to a thought process that our male counterparts had, then we're considered angry instead of just having an opposing thought process, right? And
yeah,
so we have to tap dance and walk on eggshells. So this conversation is incredibly important because we've got to push through a multi-layer, just a bunch of layers of issues before we can even, see the light of day.
that's right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And Stephanie, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
I absolutely agree. There's a couple of points that both of you ladies have made. Janae, I believe you said that, sometimes your mom would have to work to support you financially
Yeah,
and your family support, financially, and maybe not there as much emotionally. And, I have two
yeah,
kids. They are 8 years apart. And
wow,
one had all my time, all,
yeah,
all my time and all my energy. And the other one got to watch me become a career woman in front of his eyes, and he has things, but maybe not my time. And
yeah,
for a mother and, a parent, and not just mothers, just parents, it's that work-life balance
yeah,
that we're always striving to achieve. I always feel
yeah,
like if two things in my world are caught up to date, then the third thing is going to be behind. I can never be
yeah,
caught up at the same time because there's too many things on my plate.
yeah,
And that's one thing that I feel very passionate about because I believe both of my children deserve my time and financial stability.
yeah,
Absolutely. And they can't, at this juncture in my life, it's not a possibility. I do the best to balance both, but I
yeah.
haven't been able to. And Karen, you said angry black woman. I've always heard feisty. You're so feisty. I am 5 foot tall, so being short kind of makes you feisty no matter what because you're small. You have to be heard.
Yeah,
But when you stand up against injustice and discriminatory policies, people don't always take to that so well. When you are
no,
True.
very passionate about justice across the scale, not just for you,
yeah,
not just for your family, but for your neighbors and your community,
yeah,
people don't always take to it so well because there are a lot of policies I think that we need to reshape in order to disable that systemic racism that's in play that keeps Hispanic and Black women head of households and it's not just about what we're paid in our jobs, but it's the
Yeah.
policies that we have on a daily basis. So for me, in a equitable workplace or life, it's really just beginning on a level playing field. I don't
Yeah.
feel like I should be penalized for being a woman or a mother or anything else. I think that
Yeah.
merit really should be in play and not our gender.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that right there is key. I think that that is essentially what should be prioritized. And I think that just taking to answering this question a little bit from my own, sort of experience, I think that is exactly what is comprised of what both of you guys have saying, that it has to be a dismantling of these structures that are in play that essentially enable these inequities to prevail and to be able to have substance and to take up space. Um, and I think that in that sense too, I was looking a little bit at just gender inequity as it pertains to different groups of women outside of pay, like I was mentioning before. And I was also seeing that for groups of immigrant women, they themselves also unfortunately undergo some inequities, especially as it pertains to corporate. That if these structures were dismantled, if these structures were to essentially be deconstructed, we would definitely see some rise within some of their socioeconomic, especially some of their economic conditions. And because of that, then it makes it harder to be able to tend to their families. One, and two, it creates more of a broken family system within their family structures, because a lot of times then they can only really afford to, if they're especially a single working immigrant mother, they have to essentially be able to work where they're at, and then also, have to think about the fact that their children may not be with them, may not even be in the same country as them. So I definitely do think that it takes deconstructing these systems, deconstruction of systemic ways of oppression and the power dynamics that continue to allow that oppression to permeate. So I would then want to ask you guys with that, what advice would you give other women who are climbing the professional ladder in whatever professional domain that they're in, yet they feel impeded by inequality of any kind?
That's a tough one. I know for me, my advice is to be who you are, be
Yeah.
yourself. Don't compromise who you are, but also walk into your career path willing to learn, be open to listen to others' perspectives.
Yeah.
Because, you know, honestly, even men have their issues. So if we look at it from a different perspective, I talked to my brother who's about 4 years older than me, and he
Yeah.
said, so you see the world from one perspective. And then he said, from my perspective, honestly, it's a lot of pressure being a man in America
Yeah.
because we're supposed to run everything and we're supposed to be successful at everything we touch.
Yeah.
So I think when we walk into these boardrooms and these meetings, we have to be able to understand, you know, the viewpoint and the vantage point of the people that we're talking to. Um, I think that, you know, my mother used to say the old school Southern saying, you get more with honey than vinegar, right? And
Yeah.
so, not that we have to soften ourselves down. I just think that we have to come across in a more loving is a little different word, but I'm trying to search for something, but maybe in a more amicable manner so that someone will be willing to listen to us. Because I don't know about you guys, but I've been a parent of three kids. Two are grown, and I have one left at home. I learned a long time ago with my first child, the more that I fussed, the less he listened. But the more that I explained and talked and had conversations with my kids, the more they would listen and actually adhere. And so I think the workplace is very similar. My
Yeah.
advice to someone young is don't sacrifice who you are, but also realize that when you walk into a room, you have to know that room that you're walking into and be able to communicate successfully.
Yeah. And I can say as a young professional myself, I really do, one, appreciate advice like that, and two, take heed to that. It is definitely a challenge, I think, every day when I have to enter a space, and especially when I have to act in leadership roles, to remember to just hone in on going in and being most successful self. And so it's something that I'm continuously always trying to practice and always trying to implement within my daily regimen. So I really do thank you for just sort of bolstering that within me because I really needed that.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Would you like to share with what some of your advice would be?
Sure. So I started a late career. I was 35 and decided I'm going to jump into real estate, and I've been here
Yeah.
ever since.
Wow.
Um, again, I was a math and comp science major, and it didn't go well. So I ended up doing social informatics, which is computer programming for the social sciences. And I
Nice.
think a lot of that's come into play with my DEI involvement and
Yeah.
just being a realtor in general. We have to understand social situations and be able to help our clients. So,
Yeah.
what I have found to be my success would be surround yourself with like-minded individuals. Their
Yeah.
EXP is huge. Go find your people, meet with them, network, and do what's at your passion.
Yeah.
For a woman, set boundaries.
Yes.
Learn how to say no. When you take a women's self-defense course, that's the first thing they teach you. Set boundaries. And then
Yeah.
after that, and it goes with it, stand up for what you believe in and don't back down. And, I feel like we're all really lucky, everyone at this fireplace chat, because at EXP, we are allowed to have this conversation. Many corporations and companies would not dream about letting us speak openly about this. And
No. Mhm.
and EXP is a company that you are rewarded for your merit and not your
Yeah.
gender. I think that we are really lucky and fortunate to be a part of this company.
Yeah.
Holly Mayberry and Parker Dunaway. I mean, they just got voted most influential women of the year. That's two of our huge,
Wow.
staff,
Yeah.
VPs that really have changed the course of real estate. And we're all a part of that. And I just think we're
Yeah.
really lucky to be here and have what EXP provides for us. And it allows us to have these delicate, meaningful conversations.
Yeah, and I think that delicate is definitely the way in which we want to have these conversations. While I definitely love, love, love what you said, Stephanie, about for women, the advice that you were giving about not backing down and standing firm on their beliefs and on their goals, and also in that same breath, then not allowing anyone to intimidate them. I think that in that we can become and grow to be really feisty and hostile, which is not an issue. The issue that's made in that is the stereotype that comes out of that.
Correct. I
Because
definitely
it's
agree.
fine, it's fine for, especially if you're understanding what women of all different kinds of social identities are going through, then you would begin to really want to deconstruct even seeing them in a stereotypical light because emotions like that are valid. And I think that one, those women need to hear more of that. But then also speaking to what Karen was saying, I think that with that, in order for us to really be able to reach our allies, because it still is a very sensitive topic, um, one of the things that we really do want to facilitate is empathy, being able to make sure that we're having these conversations and we're speaking our truths, but we're doing so in ways that are sharing stories and anecdotes that will include and make other people feel invited in to get to know us and want to partake in whatever it is that we're talking about, whatever the cause is, whatever the movement is. And so I really do thank you both for just kind of honing in on that because I think that that's very impertinent to what we're doing here in DEI, but then also just what I see within EXP. And then I have just one final question for you guys, actually. How can those attending or watching this event get involved? Essentially, how can those that are allies to either your respective groups empower girls or in a Black EXP network, or just outside of that, how do you think you can advise these individuals to be able to get involved within this issue of gender pay inequity and then just inequities in general for women as they are trying to continuously be able to defy all of the different working conditions that are posed against them?
Sure. So I think it's really important to say that this is a community issue. This
Yeah,
does not just affect women or children. It affects
yeah,
everyone. And it's really, really important, I agree, for us to have allies and champions. So as a power girl, even though I know men would not be a power girl, but we would love to have you as allies in our group. Um, just to see what women are thinking, to get a different perspective, like Karen was saying that she got from her brother. Just to see things from a lens of another person. I mean, compassion goes a very long way. And I think that's really kind of what it is, to be
Yeah.
supportive of your community and not just a gender or a race, but everyone in your community. So be compassionate and be inclusive. That would be what I would. And I would love to see everybody with Power Girls. I will accept anyone who wants to be a part of us. Just so you can see what we're doing and uh, the, really compassion and inclusivity. I think is goes will go a long way.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that that definitely is so right, and that's so key. And Karen, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I love the Black EXP network. I am just, so excited to be a part of being Melanie Thomas and Fee Gentry, Damian Forrester, all of those who stepped up to start our group. Like they have done an incredible job of creating a great culture. We share a lot of information with each other. We do events, educational events, and this is certainly a topic that it would be great for all of us to come together, DEI, um, Power Girls, and Ben to do a big forum so that we can talk and maybe even bring in some experts, that deal with this every day. I think it would be just a
Yeah.
great initiative. But like we are actually having an open house on Thursday for Black EXP Network, to talk about what the leadership roles are, what the potential to, actually be an action
Yeah.
oriented leader. It's a lot to do in that role, as you guys, I'm sure leading your committees and your groups.
Yeah.
So we invite you guys to come out. I'm not sure if Mel, are you still in the room with us? If you can drop the link, the registration link, that would be great in the chat. If not, I'll look for it when I stop talking. But we're having an open house on Thursday at 10:45. We would love to see you guys, share, spread the wealth, and come see what our tribe is doing and how we're helping each other, not just increase our production here at EXP, but just improve our lives as, those working in the industry. We would love to have anybody that wants to join us.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Thank you guys so much for that. And definitely, guys, please do go check out both Power Girls and Ben. Both groups, I can say I've only been a part of both groups for about 2 weeks now. But just from what I've seen, they both have just such amazing, amazing things planned, and they've just been doing great things. So please do go ahead and check out both groups and go ahead and join and get involved in the work that they do because it's definitely amazing. And with that, I'm actually going to conclude. Thank you guys so much for coming and attending this event. We definitely appreciate it. And I would especially like to give a thank you to my two guest speakers, Stephanie Prenette and Karen Johnson. Thank you both so much for being here, for being willing to be a part of this conversation, for being willing to be a part of this change. I am so grateful to have had you guys both here and to be able to dedicate your time. Thank you guys so much. And I would also like to, while I have you guys' attention, give a big shout out to Melanie Thomas and Damian Forrester. I was harassing them for like the last couple of weeks trying to find someone to represent for me for the Black women because of the fact that this conversation really needed to be had. And Cody was saying that if we couldn't find someone, then we weren't going to be able to have this event. So I really do, from the bottom of my heart, also appreciate the both of you. Thank you guys so much for finding Karen for me. And I also want to thank Cody for finding Stephanie for me because it was great being able to connect with both of you guys. And with that, I would like to conclude. Would you guys like to give any concluding remarks?
Oh, just thank you for having me. I'm so glad Mel she texted me. I was actually at a conference in Tampa and she said, "Can you participate?" And I always tell Mel, anything for you. So I'm so glad that I was able to participate. And thank you so much, Janai. And great meeting you, Stephanie. I hope that we can do some things collaboratively in the future.
Yeah.
Yes. Likewise, thank you, ladies, so much. It's been a great conversation, and thank you to everyone that sat and listened. And I hope we gave you a little bit of insight into our worlds.
Thank you guys.